Isn't it weird that we don't remember everything? I'm in my early 30s and have had many experiences, but I can only recall a handful of them. I can't be the only one who finds it odd that the vast majority of our lives are essentially missing. We have an entire functioning society with peoples whose hands are on some pretty powerful buttons, and half of us can't even remember what we had for breakfast this morning. It's completely absurd when you think about it. And the reason why these large chunks of our lives are missing can really be traced to one thing: special. We remember things which are special or meaningful or important, whichever you prefer, although I'd argue that specialness isn't just something being important. I mean, there are all kinds of important things which people could care less about. Look at voting. People say voting is important, but half of people don't vote. Retirement is also important. However, if you talk to an 18-year-old about retirement, they don't give a hoot. But if you talk to a 45-year-old, it's a completely different story. In this sense, you can see that specialness is something which is important to the individual. And for the longest time, I've been trying to understand what exactly makes something special. Anyone who has a girlfriend or aspires to have one should pay attention, because this will eventually come up at some point in your relationship. You will have to evaluate what makes something special, probably under duress, but I digress. Now, is it rarity? Does something being 1 in a million make it special? What about 1 in 600 trillion? Or is special tied to relatedness? We tend to find things special that have something to do with us. For example, you think your parents are special, but a stranger on the bus, not so much. Well, it's obviously a bit of both, and the fact that it's both suggests something very strange. We are experiencing movement across a hyperplane. I know this is pretty far out, but allow me to explain. This is tricky to put into words, so in order to simply understand it, we can wrap this all up in a nice intuitive metaphor: resonance. Specialness behaves in a similar way to resonance. We often describe a special moment as resonating with us, correct? There is a reason why we talk like that. It's a form of understanding and caring. We can go back to the previous examples. When you are 18 years old, you don't care about retirement. When you are 45, you care a whole lot more. And when you are 65, it's all you think about. And all that's changed is your proximity to it. It's like the closer you get to it, the more mental real estate it takes up. You can no longer forget about it. It uses more memory. This is what I mean by resonance. It's similar to a tuning fork drawing closer to an energy source, and as it does, they form a stronger and stronger relationship. Speaking of relationships, the same thing rings true in the family example as well, pun intended. Out of any given population of people, you'll see the ones you care about follow a gradient where the closer you are to them, the more you care about them. This can be based on genetic lineage, social bonds, ideology, you name it. Normally in real life, it's a very complex combination of all factors, but these are simple examples for you to follow along. In all cases, things go from being important to you. They become special. It's relatedness and rarity. There is a specific key that fits that hole. And a key and lock relationship is the perfect example to use. It is the poster child of this dynamic. A lock which is made for a single key has a dynamic where they are completely related, and by result, maximally rare. They are both only related to one thing in the entire universe. They are interdependent. That's how resonance works. In physics, the resonator acts as a filter. It's like a field which shrinks, and as this field shrinks, the density of connection increases. The more related you are to something, the more connected you are to it, because reality is pattern, connection, information, and relationships. The same way a resonator acts as a filter, so does our brain. It's Neuroscience 101 that our brain is literally filtering information 24/7, and things which are special get prime real estate. Rarity and relatedness. It's ultimately degrees of uniqueness because that's what special is. To speciate literally means to differentiate, to separate, to be unique, to have an identity. However, there is something weird or paradoxical about uniqueness. It's the fact that once again there is a gradient. On face value, being unique means being different from everything else. This implies that having less in common or fewer relationships with other things makes something more unique. The conundrum is that being truly unique means to not have anything in common with anything. It is complete alienation to be an alien, alone, unrecognizable, a ghost. The more unique something is, the more rare it becomes by definition. But there is also the relatedness aspect, to be rare and relatable. This is the sweet spot of the dynamic. To be too rare is to be impossible to find. To be too relatable is to lose your identity altogether, like a drop of water falling into the ocean. We are experiencing some kind of middle ground. It's the sameness of difference, or what we call unity. You take a group of disparate things and you find what they all have in common. You pull them into harmony, following along with the resonance theme. We call it pattern recognition. It's learning. You can look at it like this. There are all of these countless things that happen to you throughout your life, but most of it is noise. It's meaningless. It's not special, so you don't remember it. And out of that sea of noise, a structure emerges. The parts of your life you consider to be the most special. This structure is the core of your identity. If you want to be scientific about it, the science says this as well, that our brains stitch a narrative together about who we are. The architecture of your memories is what shapes your identity. Each memory is like the bookmarks in a story. You can view this as being the ridges on a key, your unique key signature, or following the metaphor for this video, your unique resonance structure with its own natural frequency, your tuning fork as it were. Call it your timeline or what have you. As I mentioned in the previous video, which I suggest you watch if you haven't yet, you make decisions based on what you can recall from the past. So this bundle of memories is the most crucial aspect of your behavior. It shapes or frames everything. And those who have been following me for a while understand the importance of a frame. This chain of memories is just as important to your behavior as the DNA chain in your body. I say it's like the DNA sequence of your life because it encodes instructions for what decisions get made. Maybe it's like a form of spiritual DNA or something like that, but it's ultimately guiding our behavior. It's piloting us through possibility space, and it does this via resonance, like a highly selective transceiver. And this isn't some abstract process. We all personally deal with this every day, all day. It's what we experience as intuition and decision making. We like to think of intuition as airy-fairy foolishness, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Nature is far more advanced than we give it credit for. I mean, we are all here today because of the intuition of our ancestors. Intuition is a complex phenomenon that obviously plays a crucial role in evolution. You could say it's like some bioelectric quantum computing our brains are performing, where we are subconsciously simulating varying timelines and picking the one that fits the best if that makes you feel better about it and less woo-woo. I phrase it like that too sometimes. There is no shame. There are all kinds of ways you can phrase it. The everyday Joe would just say your conscious acts as a compass. You hear New Agers talk about being in alignment. I mean, that's what resonance is. It's things being aligned. There are all of these different ways of expressing the same phenomenon. I'm just trying to explain this in a way where you don't need a PhD in physics or to take a heroic dose in order to understand what's happening here. Resonance is intuitive because it pops up in physics, chemistry, biology, and ordinary human life. It covers the most ground. It's what they all have in common, the sameness of their difference, as it were. It's the unifying principle because this is how this all works. This chain of memory seeks resonance with its environment, and when it finds this resonance, sense making starts to occur. It's obvious. If I throw you into a chaotic environment, you first start making sense of it by referring to your own identity, aka your memories, and you relate these memories to the environment. You try to relate or align the inside with the outside. We say things like you orientate yourself, right? To orientate means to align, to discover your unique position in relationship to everything else. It's a key and lock dynamic. By fundamental necessity, there is a U-shaped hole at all times that you must fill simply by the fact that you take up space. And this chain of memories is the key that fits into that hole. This is subjectivity. For example, if you look at Goethe's color theory, which is what artists use, in this theory, color is actually produced from the interplay of light and darkness. It's relational. This also stands to reason that it is relative. If a color is produced from the interplay of light and darkness, then it's virtually impossible for any two subjects to see the same color because light and darkness are not uniformly distributed throughout nature. To put it simply, a group of people standing in a room looking at a painting would see something different because the ratios of light and darkness change across space. It's a very slight change, but change nonetheless. So if I wanted to see exactly what you're seeing, I would have to stand exactly where you are standing. And in order to do that, I would have to ultimately displace you. As I made my way towards you from my position, my perspective would slowly become like yours. We would have a stronger resonant relationship. This is how memory works. It's a gradient. This is why we are able to relate to people with similar worldviews. Our perception is in some kind of field that operates based on proximity, likeness, and relation, where the closer something is to us in this space, the more real it becomes, the more special it feels, the more memory it takes up, the more it resonates with us. The fact that I have to displace you is what subjectivity is. I can't just jump into your body and see what you see. That would be a superposition, which isn't allowed. Everything has to have a unique position that only they can see at all times. This is what ultimately creates the interiority of our own world. We have a private inner life, a private experience that nothing else can have. This unique position is like your own little TV channel or frequency, as it were. Now, this all seems fair enough, but here comes the spooky metaphysics. The structure of memory sits as the nucleus of your decisions. However, it does not and cannot exist in a vacuum. Otherwise, it would be cut off from everything and alienated. There is a core that you associate with your identity, but this core branches out into some kind of obscurity. Once again, it's like a gradient. There is this gradient of focus where the most special memories are the most pronounced and present. They are the core or nucleus of the structure. And the further out into obscurity you go, the deeper the memory becomes. And when I say deeper, I mean it's obscured, like it's buried, it's out of focus. And the strange but also telling part is that somehow a deep enough memory generates the same result as being forgotten. And there lies the paradox, a forgotten memory. These two antithetical poles coexisting. How can I have a memory that I've forgotten? It's like, how can I not know that I know? It's an epistemological conundrum that actually tells you a lot about the nature of consciousness and metacognition. Because at the end of the day, what everything boils down to is knowledge itself, what it means for something to be known or to make sense, which is my entire focus. If there is a memory that you've forgotten, we say it's deep within our minds. People who have had certain kinds of experiences know that there are all kinds of things in our memory which we aren't conscious of. Fittingly enough, these memories are often brought forth to attention by sort of pinging them. We say they get triggered. Something happens that is similar enough to where they resonate. There is some kind of reenactment which reminds you. You say that it becomes triggered when the outside world aligns with it, like closing the loop in a circuit so energy can flow. In neuroscience, we get around this by saying our brain has a memory hierarchy. There's long-term, short-term, and useless info, which is constantly getting deleted or filtered out. In psychology, the model is there's the conscious mind and subconscious mind. And once again, you see that there's a gradient that fades into obscurity. That's what all of these models demonstrate. And through an epistemological lens, forgetting is no different than ignorance. It's hidden information, literally. It's error, imperfection, separation, or gaps. But this dynamic between remembering and forgetting raises an interesting question. Just how deep can memory be? You can look at it like this, that if a deep enough memory is indistinguishable from forgetting, aka separation, could it be the case that what we perceive as separation is actually a forgotten memory? That in between two separate entities there is a hidden link, or that we have a quote unquote imperfect perception that creates the illusion of separateness. We have forgotten. For the longest time, this was the woo-woo secret, but now even the science is starting to catch up. You hear reputable people in all of these varying fields saying that reality is really some kind of unified field or smooth continuum. That's the word they use. It's a smooth continuum that our brains splice into fragments. You see, you don't have to drink the Kool-Aid to understand any of this. It all deals with knowledge itself, which is what memory is. There are things your brain remembers from 20 years ago. There are things your body remembers from 200,000 years ago. Inherited genetics, instincts, blah, blah, blah. However, you can go so deep to the point where one thing ends and another begins, ceases to make sense because everything ultimately comes from the same place. It's a single unified memory, a kind of cosmic memory. The reason why what I'm saying makes sense to many of you is because I'm triggering it. It's resonance. This is literally our deepest memory, which is why it's often guarded as being sacred. Religions form around it. In the Gnostic tradition, it's called the dewdrop, the remembrance of unity. There's that word again. The closer you get to that point, the more everything begins to blur and melt together like a dream. You can remember being Gandhi, a feudal peasant, Jesus, Julius Caesar, the birds, the bees, and the trees. And this is when you start to see people talking about past lives and different reincarnations, like with the Akashic records. There is a reason for this. Memory and the past can really be boiled down to knowledge itself. They are indistinguishable. I talked about this in the previous video. This record database is the totality of all knowledge. It exists because we are able to forget. There is an edge to our understanding, at least a perceived edge. It gives birth to locality. It's how there are discrete instances of things because each thing must occupy a unique position. And as you wander deeper towards this edge of our understanding, you essentially lose your identity and forget who you are. Who you are falls out of focus and you can be anything. There are no rules. However, the catch is that this is indistinguishable from the great beyond. You cease to be local and enter a non-local possibility space I call the imagination. And accurately describing the mechanics of the situation we are currently in is like the holy grail of all metaphysics. I mean, who are we kidding here? I'm not God, but there is an alien or ghost that is interacting with some kind of field. When this happens, it distorts said field and gives rise to appearances. You could say it's warping some space-time fabric, curving a hyperspatial plane, casting a shadow onto a lower dimensional surface. In esotericism, they talk about all of these different psychic fields, these different bodies. I don't know. I have more questions than answers. You can pick whichever rabbit hole to go down, but the end result winds up being the ability to focus. It's attention, what we describe as consciousness. I say all the time that memory is akin to gravity. The memories we possess are like the memories we are able to hold on to. They fall into our gravity well, as it were. There is a quote by physicist David Bohm that is popular in esoteric circles where he calls matter frozen light. Well, perhaps matter isn't frozen light per se, but more so captured light. I mean, this is the Gnostic proposition, after all, that everything is trapped light. The reason why you do not or cannot completely forget who you are is due to a similar reason why you cannot jump to the moon. Your identity is like light that has fallen beyond the event horizon of a black hole and can't escape, or something like that. There is a force acting upon you, keeping you bound. For us, we just call this force life, a life force, being alive. Matter. We are tethered to a body. However, this isn't about escaping the body. My entire point is that this body serves a purpose. This is what this resonant mnemonic DNA structure does. It encodes behavior and as a result, decodes the future. It's something like a quantum search algorithm that is looking for the correct path through possibility space. We use our knowledge to navigate ignorance. You could say we use the past to decode the future. The future is being processed or downloaded and stored as memory. It's decoding and decryption, problem solving. It's as I mentioned. This all takes place as learning. And this is what resonance ultimately accomplishes. It filters down and eliminates all other possibilities. No more potential left. And when that happens, all that's left is a unique identity. That's what learning is. It's the manifestation of potential, to decohere the superposition. For there to be nothing else something can be. Now, if you can forget the past, you certainly can remember the future. There is very little distinction between the two. Or you can say there is no real way to tell the difference between remembering something long forgotten and learning something new. Plato said something similar, that embodied existence is essentially a form of amnesia, and when we contact the realm of the forms, we are remembering what was forgotten via a process called anamnesis. Now, with all of this in mind, when you put these pieces together, the most suspicious word in the dictionary becomes coincidence. When we say coincidence, we are really trying to express an attitude. What the sentiment means to say is that something isn't special, because the word coincidence in this context is a big nothing burger. To coincide means to happen simultaneously. And I don't know if you knew this, but last time I checked, everything is one big coincidence. You can take a snapshot of the universe right now, and everything is happening everywhere, all at once, all throughout it. The most distant stars are dying right now at the same moment. Babies are being born. This big coincidence is called the present moment, which is indistinguishable from consciousness. No matter which relativistic time-dilated position things occupy in the universe, they are all linked by their version of the present moment. And since the present moment is one big coincidence, this points to something we all naturally understand: harmony. You see, I'm trying to tie this all together for you. These motifs of resonance and unity, these all give way to harmony. Everyone listening to this video right now arrived here from a different past, but we all intersect here. That's harmonic resonance. When you hear a music chord, you don't hear the individual notes. You hear them all at once, which forms something greater than the sum of their parts. If I play one single note and then play a following note, the mind pairs the note in the present with a previous one from the past and beholds the relationship between the two. It's the relationship beheld between things. It's where things intersect, the child of products, the sameness of difference, synthesis, unity. It's harmony. We are in a harmonic decision matrix. If there's one thing I have discovered, it's that this is all about decisions. I've come to understand at least that much. Everything we do matters. We are like the notes in a complex harmony, or you can just say that reality is a super-dimensional information swarm. It's a crazy carnival, which brings up a very important point. This chain of memories encodes our decisions. However, we experience it as intuition. It's a feeling. It will seem special. We only see things which are special to us. You tune into it. It's a form of signaling. Everything in nature is based on signal. everything. This isn't woo, this is science. Every decision that's made is a signal to something else. It's called signaling behavior if you open up a biology book. If you always drive to the left whenever we play basketball, it signals to me that your right side is weak. Everything in nature operates on this principle of signs and signals. People today like to use the term information. And for us in our decisions, things which resonate with you will appear as a path. It will be information. It will appear as the right thing, as being true. It will make sense, and everything else won't make sense. You tune it out. This is how sense making occurs, which is the main focus of my work. Figuring out why and how things make sense, and we experience this as feeling. I say that this process of decoding the future is reality processing complex emotions. This ultimately means that our feelings mean something, our intuition. This quantum calculation or whatever presents itself as feeling. It feels right or it feels wrong. We say it's a vibe. There's a reason why we talk like that. And once you see that everything is a vibe, you can finally relax. We like to say that facts don't care about your feelings, but it's actually closer to facts being made of our feelings. In layman's terms, we just say your upbringing shapes how you see the world. It forms what you believe to be right and true. What is considered to be the right thing is what always aligns with the resonant structure of the person, their chain of memories. It's a vibe. This is how society operates. Everyone thinks that they are right. And this is when you get into this whole thing about truth being relative. This idea is currently under a lot of scrutiny and falling out of favor. Well, there is a reason why things fall out of favor. This is what I'm trying to say. There is a zeitgeist, a trend. A trend is just a pattern. It's information, a vibe. We can feel there is a strange hidden timing component because it's all based on harmony. Objective truth shouldn't be able to fall out of favor at all. It should be undeniably self-evident, right? It's the one signal that should make sense to everyone. But we know real life doesn't work like that. When we want freedom, security is demonized. It's a prison. It's wrong. When we want security, freedom is prosecuted. It's wild, dangerous, and uncivil. And the only thing that changed is how we felt. When we crave order, we make truth this unchanging ideal that can't be challenged. And when we feel that becomes too oppressive, we make it more fluid. We invoke gray areas or place a but behind every statement. These are how the cycles of reality work. It's like fashion. It starts out as niche, goes mainstream, and then dies as the new thing takes over in this Hegelian dialectical process. It's a never-ending battle for market share. This is what battles are. It's a game, as I mentioned in my previous video. The person who is wrong is the person who disagrees with you or opposes you. That's what it means to be wrong, to be incongruent or disharmonious. And perhaps I'm phrasing it in a way that sounds odd, but this is deeply rooted in philosophy. You hear philosophers talk about this concept of will a lot, or maybe they just say power. Our will versus nature's will, your power versus my power. Power is just a non-woo-woo way of talking about energy. I mean, that is what the term is rooted in. Whatever has the stronger signal shapes the reality. We accept it as law, as being true. We can't overcome nature's will, so it's law. You can't overcome the power of the government, so you follow the law. The more any power is able to be challenged, the more it will be challenged because it's weak, and in nature, it's survival of the fittest. This applies to ideas as well. It's epigenetic evolution. This is where the concept of memes come from. Ideas are like organisms with lifespans, offspring, the whole nine. When the idea is strong, it's like the head of the lion's pride. What it says goes, but eventually it becomes old and weak, and a younger, more virile lion challenges it. The key takeaway here is that during its time, the current trend is the true, correct way for things to be. We call this culture. A culture is just the shared truth value of a group. You may have heard people like Terence McKenna say it's a collective hallucination, which is held together by some kind of frequency. Essentially, he says it's language. We say when in Rome, do what the Romans do. You fall in line. It's alignment and resonance. This principle applies to everything. History is his story. A story is a frequency, and the one which resonates the most will be accepted as being true. This is how a lawyer can get a guilty man to go free. He just told the better story. This is how we are able to lie. Speaking of McKenna, he used to say that the best story will win, and that's true. I'm not saying that truth is simply relative. I'm saying that it's resonant. It's almost like a field. It isn't some static, unchanging ideal. It's like color or music. It's determined by the interplay of forces that are akin to a frequency. I guess at the end of all of this, I've become one of those frequency people, but it's just such an intuitive way to describe what's happening. At the end of the day, it's vibes and feeling. Anytime we are confronted with the unknown, we have to make a decision because we are in a decision matrix where uncertainty is being torn apart by decoherence. And fundamentally, we can only decide based on what we believe. However, belief is not rational. It's ruled by our feelings. What we want to be true is hopelessly entangled with what is true. Even science, all of these experts in these white lab coats that you think are these purely deductive, logical people are ruled by their feelings too. It's inescapable. The scientific method starts with observation, and as long as there is an observer, you inject vibes into the equation. It's subjectivity. It's widely accepted now that any experiment has the bias of the performer built into it. You can't get around it. For example, Dr. John Sapolsky is prominent in neurobiology, and much of his work has been guided by a feeling he had when he was a child. He said when he was around 13, he decided that we don't have free will and pretty much spent the rest of his life trying to prove it. This is what I'm talking about. That was just the frequency he was on. His worldview eventually makes it into your science books and presented to you as truth. And you will accept or reject it based on whether it resonates with you or not. Most people are compelled by the authority of academic standing. That's power. Some people are skeptical of these institutions, so they will look at everything they say with scrutiny. All of these are judgments we make. A judgment is just a vibe, a gut feeling. A judge can never know if you did the crime or not. They go with how they feel based on the evidence, but it will still always be a feeling. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying this is how it is. We all do this. I can point out all the different ways this manifests in our lives, but this video would go on forever. And I dive into the intricacies of all this in other videos, but science wants to get rid of this. However, this isn't a flaw. It's a feature. It's, as I mentioned, our feelings matter. You could say that our behavior is some complex form of mathematics. For example, you can ask someone why don't they like something, but many people don't know why they don't like it. They just don't like it. It's a feeling for them. However, people who are a bit more cerebral and self-aware can give you an entire dissertation on why they don't like it. They can tell you about how some childhood event changed their attitude, the implications for society at large, how they believe their genetics come into play, etc. For one person, it's just a feeling, but this feeling is actually generated by a complex symphony of circumstances. And Gen Z is finding all of this stuff out. They are discovering the irrational nature of nature, just how complicated it is. And it's negatively impacting their psychology because they are too young to know this stuff. But that's just my opinion. That's what all of this looks-maxing stuff is. Two similar scenarios, nearly identical, can generate two completely different feelings. Who we like versus dislike. Who we believe versus who we don't. Who we find to be funny. Who is our champion. Being smart doesn't mean you get to be the king. Maybe you just get to be an advisor to the king, because we can all sort of feel who should be king and who shouldn't be. This feeling is like an incredibly complex calculation. The way you look matters. Intelligence matters. Age matters. Your family lineage matters. The way your voice sounds matters. Timing matters. They've done studies that judges give harsher sentences before they've had lunch. Same crime, different time. One goes free, the other is sitting in Angola somewhere. This is just a tiny sample of everything that plays a part in our decisions. There are factors which influence this from when we were monkeys. There are factors which influence this we inherit from when we were bacteria. All of these things are layered on top of each other. I really can't stress enough just how complicated nature is. There is all of this complex signaling that is being processed consciously and subconsciously. This subconscious, aka forgotten or hidden operating system, is always working in the background, and because it's cut off or separated from us, there are these gaps in our conscious perception. Events seem disjointed. However, we already know that reality is a smooth continuum which we dissect into pieces to create a narrative. Everything that we believe to be separate from us is really a unified cosmic mind which is necessarily fragmented in order to witness its own inner workings. I say that consciousness is turning inside out. If you could illuminate this hidden system working in the background, you would see alien technology running like clockwork, and it would completely invert the meaning of the word coincidence. It would turn inside out. When you are unaware or unconscious, everything is just a coincidence. And as you become more aware, the frequency of coincidences increases. Eventually, you get to the point where coincidences are happening nonstop and your brain gets fried. This is what it's like to go insane. All of a sudden, nothing is a coincidence. Or more accurately, everything is coincidental, meaning everything coincides. It's all connected. It is to see the meaning in everything. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. If I were born 300 years ago, I would be picking cotton. The fact that I am who I am, when I am, where I am, means something and is purposeful. You know, science and spirituality have had their differences. They seem to be like these quarreling brothers. However, they are both rooted by the same core principle, that everything happens for a reason. This is what they both say. When something happens that we don't understand, it is attached to an unseen network. The only difference between the two is what they want to believe about the nature of this network, which brings me to my closing remarks. Nature is far more complex than we believe. We are far more complicated than we want to admit. We tend to view the quantum world as this high-tech, super complex plane, but it's literally the smallest part of who we are. We are far more complicated than an atom ever could be. The most difficult problems we face aren't Millennium Prize mathematical problems. They are social problems. It isn't how to stop one atom from stealing the electron of another. It's how to stop your friend from stealing from you. Many of these problems are so complex, we've given up on them for the most part. We just accept that greed isn't going anywhere, war, corruption, people are going to cheat, etc. We've tried democracy, we've tried dictatorship, and none of them fit the bill. Human society is the most complex phenomenon taking place on the planet right now. And the same way biology sits on top of chemistry, which sits on top of physics, something is sitting on top of us. It's a plane which is made up of our decisions. I'll try to explain what I mean by pointing something out. No matter how sophisticated our technology becomes, we can never make anything do anything. We can only influence behavior. That's it. When we do chemistry, we are essentially trying to convince one chemical to play with another. When we do medicine, we are making little machines that enter the body and try to influence the behavior of microbes. When there is an endangered species, we put the male and female in an enclosed environment and try to get them to copulate. All we ever do is influence, never direct control. Direct control is impossible. That would be certainty, which isn't allowed. It's always a decision that has to be made. We only make things more or less probable. Even the most predictable of phenomena operate with varying degrees of certainty because openness, aka uncertainty, is fundamental. And it is precisely this gap/ignorance which allows space for interplay and the creation of opportunity. It is a decision. The electron may jump from one atom to another. It may not. Although this molecule has an affinity to this receptor site, it isn't guaranteed to take. This may be radical to say, but if you could become a molecule, you would see that they are making decisions. It just doesn't seem like that to us. And when we make decisions, we are doing something akin to chemistry. While something beholds your behavior the same way we behold other layers of reality. It would look at you and see a molecule or something like that. In psychology, I guess people would just say that it's your personality or whatever. A personality is like a molecule. There are different types and groupings of types that all interact differently. Some attract, others repel. We talk about attachment styles and personality types and how they interact the same way we talk about chemical compounds. And a personality has everything to do with this DNA resonance structure. Your personality is shaped by your memories. This DNA structure is causing you to make decisions that wind up being patterns. The data is in. Human behavior follows a pattern just like everything else. We often don't see these patterns. You think you are making progress, but those around you see you are going in circles, cycles of decisions. This is how it works. To you, it's unresolved. To other perspectives, it's patterned. These patterns are the building blocks of your destiny, which is what I call this higher dimensional objects our decisions create. Our lives are like a chemical reaction taking place. I mean, this was the entire deal with alchemy and soul transmutation. And when this reaction completes, it creates a new product. When the DNA sequence completes, when you have made every decision you could possibly make, time runs out and a new dimension of complexity emerges. And what this means for you is that your decisions are the creation of something, or you are unlocking something. I'm not sure which way is correct. It's the tension between discovery versus creation. Which one is really happening? Jung says we are realizing or discovering the self. Plato says we are remembering what was forgotten. Nietzsche says we are creating and becoming. But as I mentioned, a resonant acts as a filter, and you are filtering down all possibility into one single unified entity, something that is both maximally related and rare. Your destiny, your God-given birthright. You could say that for something to be both maximally related and rare, it essentially means it's for you. You are literally the only thing it could be for. It doesn't fit anywhere else. This is your destiny. Humanity has a long-standing belief in the idea that we have a soul, and this seems to be what this all points to. We have some kind of soul which exists outside of time. I guess a modern translation could be to say it sits above space-time in another dimension. This is what I mean when I say destiny. It's like an extra dimensional intersection of every decision that was ever made. We see this in our myths about a soul which is judged based on its decisions. It somehow wears that information. You could say we are like a decompressed version of it. The same way the universe is a decompressed version of this infinitesimally dense point. And the same way your soul can be saved at any point, your destiny can be transformed at any moment. It isn't written in stone. It isn't the same thing as fate. You can change it right now by simply changing what you believe, like changing a musical note. This is the whole deal with chaos. Nothing can be ruled out. The world could end right now. It's not impossible. It's just highly unlikely. It's the permission for a miracle. You can change your destiny right now the same way your molecules can suddenly rearrange and turn you into a cabbage. There is nothing stopping that from happening but probability. It's something that is so unlikely, so rare, but also so relatable that it's nothing less than magic. It's a miracle, which is what everything is when you think about it. It's special. Some kind of way, this all has something to do with miracles and magical power. Anything really is possible. This is what everyone on this side of the aisle talks about. This idea or this thing we have in our hearts about God or the Philosopher's Stone or the Sword of Excalibur, whatever MacGuffin you want to insert, the Ring of Power. It's the magic wand that can do anything. This is what we are trying to create, or it's what we are and have forgotten. Who really knows? But I've rambled enough. This video was a doozy to make. There are all kinds of twists and turns, and even if you couldn't follow it all, I hope you were able to take something away from this. But the conversation doesn't end here. We continue discussions like these on my private website called paramind.org. You know, I've gone through all of the typical avenues creators go to, Patreon, school, etc., but to be honest, they are very lackluster. I thought there has to be a better way to go about this, and turns out There wasn't, so I created one. I actually wanted to create a place that is specifically for us. Paramind has been custom built from the ground up just for us. There's exclusive content structured into interactive sequences so that by the end, you will understand the cosmic secret. You'll be in on the cosmic giggle. There's community forums and private messaging. I don't do Instagram DMs, but I respond to my DMs on Paramind. I check it daily. We are even adding a voice chat soon where we will have weekly or perhaps bi-monthly meetups where we all get in and chat. There is a library filled with the most influential thinkers and their ideas presented in a bite-sized digestible format. We just launched a new feature where you can even add to the library. If you have a theory or a wacky idea, post it so we can all take a look at it. Community quests are in development where we all get an objective and share our results, and the winners will get rewards. We have all kinds of stuff over there that I'm forgetting to mention, but you can learn, play, and be a part of our group. So once again, that's paramind.org. Link in the description. Also, people have accused the site of being AI, but the website contains the original thoughts of human beings. We even hired an artist to make our images and do our web design, so I just wanted to address that. So thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the website, paramind.org.